Okay.
I will call the meeting to order at 6:06 p.m. Personnel Board Special Meeting on April 7th, 2022. We start with a roll call. Gabriela Hernandez Castillo,
Here.
Gary Wood,
I'm present.
Angie Rivera,
Present.
Michelle Polito.
Here.
Bernice Bainas is not here. Nelly Legaspi,
Here.
Denise Naranjo.
Here.
And for staff, also present, we have Jenna Burns, the attorney for the Personnel Board. For staff, myself, Lori Schneider, recording secretary. We also have present James Murray and Lily Pham. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You may be seated. Do we have any public comments? No. I don't see anybody else coming in. So moving to the consent calendar, number one is excused absences. We have one absent board member, that's Bernice Bainas. And she, at the very onset, said that she was not going to be able to make this meeting or any meetings this week. We went ahead and scheduled it without her because we had no other meeting days that we could meet where we would have a full board. So do I have a motion to excuse her absence?
Nelly, I'll move.
I second.
And to vote, Gabriela Hernandez Castillo. Do you approve her absence?
Yes, I do. Can you hear me?
Yes. Nelly Legaspi.
Okay.
Yes.
Denise Naranjo.
Yes.
Michelle Polito.
Yes.
Angie Rivera
Yes.
and Gary Wood.
Yes.
The motion carries. Next on the agenda is approve the minutes of the meeting for the Personnel Board for March 16th, 2022. Do I have any discussion? Oh, wait, no. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
I make a motion to approve the minutes.
That's Gary. And do I have a second?
I'll second. This is Nelly.
Nelly, any discussion? All right, to vote, approve the minutes. Gabriela Hernandez,
Yes.
Nelly Legaspi,
Yes.
Denise Naranjo,
Yes.
Michelle Polito,
Yes.
Angie Rivera,
Yes.
Gary Wood.
Yes.
The motion carries. This is the end of the consent calendar. Moving to the business calendar. We will discuss the proposed rules for hearing appeals that changes, and I will share my screen. This was also in the agenda packet. We have the red line version. I have it here in a Word document, so we have the red line version. So what we did is we take all the discussion that we've had over the rules, and we had staff take a look at it, and our, counsel to the Personnel Board take a look at it. And these are the red line versions based on that. So we could go ahead and we could approve it as a whole, or we could go one by one to each of the changes.
I think it looks great. It's amazing. Good job, you guys. It looks really good.
It really kind of brought it kind of to current times in the way it was structured. It kind of looks like a more cohesive document.
Yes, it does. Oh my gosh. Michelle, yay you. Table of contents,
Yeah.
right? Oh my God, this is beautiful. I guess because I have my laptop on, it's easier for me just to skim through it. I'm halfway through. Thank you to the staff. I know we couldn't have done this without you guys.
Thank you.
Much appreciated. Look at this. Oh my goodness. Ah, I'm sorry. I'm just like so excited. I love seeing new documents.
As we're all scanning through it on our own devices and stuff, were there any, one thing that might be helpful is to know what things that we requested were not allowed after the review by the city attorneys. Were there any things that were omitted? Or is that?
There were some things that we had discussed, and I wasn't sure. I mean, there were a lot of items that we had discussed, and so I wasn't sure if the entire board, was interested in that change or not. One of the things that we were talking about was at the pre-hearing and who would be present at the pre-hearing.
Right.
And looking at this, anything to delay the process was a concern. And so the recommendation was that we keep it the chair and the vice chair. And of course, the rules don't preclude anybody else from attending, but to require the entire board to attend, we had discussed it, but I didn't know if everybody was behind that or it was just an idea. But certainly, the rules do state the chair and the vice chair present at the pre-hearing. Anything else would, requiring a full board meeting would definitely delay the process significantly. So that one.
I'm sorry. I was just going to say that was a big one to us. If the board is going to be behind something and have their name to the decision at the end, then we should all be present in the beginning. And everybody that becomes a commissioner for this personnel board knows that when it comes to hearings, you need to be there, especially for a pre-conference. But I mean, if council is concerned about that, Jenna, is that what you're feeling as well?
Yeah, I had expressed my concerns as counsel to the board, but I also think, Jason, who is responsible for the whole HR department, and also the city attorneys themselves also reviewed it too. And
Okay.
Just add a sentence that
No.
clarifies, for clarification, all members shall be invited.
Yeah, that might be a nice little addition, so that this way, at least, because I get why we said this from the beginning. We as personnel board members are going to be asked to make a decision, like we've seen how we've gone through this hearing, that we weren't a part of at the beginning. So if we at least add that part, maybe it may be invited, like the chair and the vice chair may invite the whole board, and those who attend can attend, and then they're committed to the end of the hearing. Does that make sense? Like we said from the beginning, if you're involved from the get, you stay involved. If you drop out, that's it. You don't come back unless, like they said, they fill them in.
Well, I think
So
we want to be careful though, that if somebody can't attend the pre-hearing, they're not off the case.
right. No, I'm talking more. I made a mistake with my words. I meant an exception to somebody resigning and somebody being replaced. Like with Gary's situation, how that happened. That would be the exception, that person wouldn't be on the hearing because they dropped out and nobody else could be put in their place. But yeah,
So-
I think if we just invite the
Okay.
personnel commission.
So if somebody, if we invite the rest of the board and someone can't make the pre-hearing, they can still participate in the hearing.
Exactly.
Perfect. I
Exactly.
like that.
So it still can move forward and it's all inclusive. I think that way it's more, I'll just say harmonious in such a way.
How might we word that?
You would just put the board, the rest of the board may
Oh,
attend.
sorry, I'm on the wrong, okay.
My
Like,
question on
I
that was,
wouldn't want to use may, because if we have a change in officers and you get someone who doesn't want to invite the personnel board to be a part of the pre-hearing, it's better to not have a gray area and say shall invite the personnel commission board. Not may, shall, because we already know about those two definitions of those two words.
my question would get back to if everybody's invited and two other board members, pardon me, show up, 2 or 3, they would be able to listen in, but they would not be able to vote on advancing the case. That would still fall to the chair and vice chair. Would that be correct, Jenna?
That would be correct.
Yeah, I think that's the intent, and I'm fine with adding this language on the spot, but I would recommend that this be reviewed for Brown Act issues before it was approved, because if we have the whole board there,
And we have to
then we're
notice
gonna
it.
have a quorum, and then any decision is technically gonna be a Brown Act decision.
Well, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with making it a Brown Act, making sure it's complying with that. I think the more transparency we have, the better.
Well, so it's actually like reading through the literature, it's up to the person that is appealing to decide if they want it to be private, right? Because we're not necessarily talking about procedures. If we're talking about procedures of the city, then it might need to be private for us, but then we could go into closed session. So,
Oh, it's up to the appellant if they want the entire case to be private, confidential or not open up to the public, but we still, even if that meeting, like any one of the hearings, is not open to the public, we still have to notice it, and we still have to make sure that it's noticed to the public. We have to post
Right.
24 hours in advance so that everybody knows and identify the location.
And that's fine. I don't think that's that big of a deal. I mean, so we have to notify the public. But again, I'm gonna voice on the side of transparency and full information ability. You know, if we're gonna start talking about going forward at some point with oversight and all that, I think we really need to follow that line of transparency. So
Yeah.
saying that the chairperson and the chairperson or vice chair shall invite the personnel commission. Okay, fine. We'll just do it. And we always know a few days, a couple weeks ahead of time when the pre-conference hearing is going to happen. So there's plenty of time to have the public notified.
Well, we probably wouldn't have a couple weeks notice. I mean, but you'll have a couple days notice.
Right. But I'm saying, in other words, to follow the Brown Act and posting and letting the public know, we'll have plenty of time to let them know. I just don't want us to use that as a rationale for not saying shall invite the personnel board.
So if we do open it, what if the appellant doesn't want it open to the public? Does it have, because I know that some employees may not want it open to the public. With having certain, a quorum, does that require it to be open to the public? I don't, maybe I'm just overthinking.
No, Denise, remember in the beginning what I said, Denise, that if you have an employee who doesn't want their name released public or anything like that, you
Mhm.
can identify them with a number. They can give them a number that doesn't relate to their employment. You just give the case a case number, not a technical case number, but you just give it like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5C. And that we know who it is, but the public doesn't know who that person is.
So then on the flip side, if only the board chair and the vice chair do show up, we cannot proceed.
No, only if they shall invite them. So if they shall invite them, but everyone declines, then they can still go forward.
No, because then
Because-
it'll be a public meeting where you need a quorum to move forward.
Ah, that's right. Okay, I guess we could say may invite.
Are we still, but if we have 4 people show up, it's 4 board members.
Right, so quorum.
Board members show up, then it is a quorum.
Well, I don't know, team, what do you think? I mean, this is something we talked about from the beginning. How do we want to handle it? Remember, what we decide on is going to affect the next commission after elections in November.
What if we did something along the lines that after the conference, the board secretary or legal counsel prepare like a summary that can go to the rest of the board about what happened. The board will then.
I don't, I
That might work.
don't agree with avoiding a
No,
forum simply for the point of
the con-
then we have to notify.
no, the concern was that there's really serious decisions made at the pre-hearing conference, and most board members at the time were not notified of like the responsibilities that a chair would carry,
Mhm.
and so we weren't aware of this until we fully reviewed the rules and procedures. And this was to have more transparency and more people involved with me. Now it's just like, oh, I'm going to send a summary of what was already discussed. That's what we were trying to avoid doing.
Yeah, I agree. And I think even if it slows it down, this was like the entire purpose of us like working on the role.
Yes, and you know what? I do have to agree with that because regardless if it's going to be a Brown Act issue, the reality is the board members, the commissioners, they know what the responsibility is, an exception to the rules part for those of us who couldn't always attend. We've all been present at the hearings, and if we weren't able to, then we were able to let everyone know and be excused and then be filled in. I think this can be handled the same way. If anybody can't go to pre-hearing conference, then those individuals that could not attend will get the summary from the representation. But I don't think that we want to X them out. And if it does cause a Brown Act issue, we'll deal with it. We'll do it appropriately, post it. I'm sure everybody will show up. If somebody doesn't, they can be given that summary.
Well, we wouldn't, so we would be able to schedule the meeting unless we had enough people to have a quorum. I think we need to be really clear.
And that's fine. We'll just contact everybody because we've got hearings coming up, and that's going to be the perfect. Well, if this gets approved by then, the point being is that if we keep trying to find excuses not to do this, we'll have plenty of them. I think we just need to go forward and do what we agreed to as a team last year when we first started. We wanted the whole commission to be included in the pre-hearing. It's a huge responsibility to be on this board, and I think we've all seen that. And so I don't think we're going to have a problem with anybody appearing and being participative in the actual pre-hearing conference. I think it'll be a good opportunity to vet everything that comes in, and we won't need to have so much discussion in the interim.
So
I have a question. It's Denise. I understand and recognize what everybody's saying. I keep on going back to when we first had our kind of training, if we don't really know what the case is, before the pre-hearing. We don't know what kind of outcome it's going to have at the end. But I look at that fiduciary responsibility. If we keep on pushing and pushing because we can't get a quorum or we can't find a date for everybody, at the end of a trial, no matter which way it goes, if there's money involved, us prolonging a case could potentially be money out of the city or money not given to a possible employee. So I'm kind of looking at it both sides, and I definitely do see, the side of the board. It makes sense. But at the same time, if we look at it, let's say just a hypothetical kind of case to where we had to push out months and months for an employee that's maybe a high earner, could be maybe $50,000 to $60,000 out of the budget. Correct me if I'm wrong, please. I don't know if that would happen or not.
No, you're correct, Denise. And on top of that, there could be a due process argument.
It could be, but like this last time with our first case, it got pushed out so much because of the holidays and everybody being new, coming in the summer and the first case and this holiday and that holiday. Those are going to happen no matter what. But we've already, as this core group, we've made a decision that the next hearing going forward, we want to, if they need 10 days, we want to get those those hearings scheduled consecutively. And we've each individually made commitments that we will cooperate with that. I mean, we don't know when the next one's going to start. Probably, I think Lori said maybe July or August. So, you plan your vacations around that. This is a responsibility, and this is a commitment we've made from anywhere from 2 to 4 years, depending on the terms. So the current terms. So I'm comfortable with changing it to shall invite the whole board and make it an issue of posting it. As long as there's transparency, I think that this will be, it'll be better for us. and the community will hear about it.
So I think we also need to review what goes on and what decisions are made in this pre-hearing, because I don't think we're putting more importance on it than needs to be. So I don't know, Jenna, if you can review kind of the things that, the decisions that would be made, and if anything would be restricted from the case due to decisions at the pre-hearing.
Well, we've seen some of the discussions we've had since this hearing has happened, that they brought up, oh, this was brought up in pre-hearing and now you're not doing it. And then we end up having to go take a caucus and have a conversation about something that we didn't even know that went on at pre-hearing, and now we're hearing about it.
And
So
it's been for us to schedule these rules meetings, like, because the lawyers haven't been there. So it
Right.
hasn't been an issue of our schedules. It has been because they're too busy.
I agree.
Well, that's not,
It won't be an issue on our side. It'll be the issue, like, I think that's kind of like irrelevant. I think it's
I
just like
think,
the,
to get it.
I think we should go forward with all of us.
the attorneys have, when we get dates that that the board is available, then we give them to the attorneys, and only in probably 3 instances have they not been available. Okay,
We can vote on it.
is this, do I have a motion to add in? Do I have a motion to add this in?
So,
So you wanted to, Denise, do we want to state it that the chairperson and or vice chairperson shall invite the personnel board to attend pre-conference hearings?
I'm reading. Sorry, my dog's barking in the background. Sorry.
Okay.
there's no point, I mean, because of the Brown forum, no point in stating it like this. It would really be just the board shall attend, and if you want to add,
Yeah, just say that the board shall attend. That's easier.
if the board shall attend, and if you want to add in, but this will not preclude them from participating. An absence at the pre-hearing conference will not preclude them from participating at the hearing.
So, I mean, if we approve this, the city attorney has said this is not a valid thing. I mean, do I still take it back to the city attorney?
Okay, yeah, but yeah, I mean,
It wasn't valid. They just said they were scared that it would slow down the process, but we've discussed it and we are not concerned that it would slow down the process.
well, I think this is, yeah, no, I mean, I think the city ultimately, is responsible for this. So if the city, doesn't approve it, that's something, I mean,
I guess you can just take it back.
right.
Okay. Okay, so, the pre-hearing conference is a mandatory meeting in person.
And
The,
that's good because this will show future personnel commissioners what a huge responsibility it is. As we all know, being in the hearings, they know that from the get, you are responsible. It's huge. It's one of the most important commissions that the city has.
do I have a motion to approve removing these 4 words, chair, the vice chair? It states the board's legal advisor, and the board secretary will also be present at the hearing conference. And then we need to add in,
But the chair and the vice chair are going to be the ones to make any decisions at the pre-hearing conference.
Okay.
Right?
yeah. So how do we need to add that into this?
So when you've got it ready to go, let me know and I'll make the motion.
Add that.
Another point in there where it states that the chair presides over it.
If we're having everyone there, why do we need to say, but these people are silent?
Yeah.
I don't like that.
mean, why are we there if our vote's not going to be counted? It's to empower the commission and the board as a whole, not to just give it to the chair and the vice chair. Because remember, prior to us getting in there, it was just the chairperson that was in the pre-hearing conference. And in writing, it said chair and vice chair. And that's when I said, well, if it's in writing, doesn't matter what past practice has been. It's in writing. That's what you follow, period. No conversation, no discussion. So this has to be exactly what we've been advocating for since last year, which is the whole commission is responsible for making those decisions, not just one or two people. And, you know, I know I'm a stickler when it comes to stuff in writing, but like I always say, if you're not going to follow what's in writing, then why put it out there?
Do I have a motion to approve this change?
I, Nellie Legaspi, move to approve the change.
Let me define the change.
Oh, I'm so excited.
Yes, we're waiting, I'm waiting.
Do I have a motion to approve the change? The board chair, the vice chair, to just the board will also be present at the pre-hearing conference.
So I, Nellie Legaspi, move to approve the change that the board's legal advisor and the board secretary will also be present at the pre-hearing conference.
Do I have a second?
I will second it. Michelle, please.
Who seconded it?
Michelle did. About to, but Michelle did. She beat me.
Okay.
Side note, what room were you guys in?
We're in room 510, sorry.
Oh, 510. Okay. I didn't recognize it. Guess it's been a while.
And any discussion? The only discussion I'd like to point out that this is going to delay the cases significantly, and I do feel, and the director of human resources feels that this would be delaying every single case moving forward, and it would potentially set us up for what do you call it when they delay the case? Due process. Yeah, not giving due process.
I think it could be noted in the minutes, Lori, but in the end, the staff does have to follow what the board wants within reason. I understand the concern, but I'm sure that since the rules say that this personnel commission has the ability to adjust the rules as needed, and that wording has not been removed, if we come up to that in the next, well, while I'm around the next couple of years and anybody else, we can make adjustments. This is the type of thing that with that ability to adjust the rules per hearing as needed, that's a nice safety net. So it is possible that we're going to be worried about something that's probably not going to even happen. And I know they're thinking of the what ifs, but we're trying to make this board stronger, more transparent, more cohesive, and just having two people make decisions that we have to all sign off on, I know we're not comfortable with. And we've said that from the beginning.
Also, can we add the comment that currently it would affect due process to not have the full board present during pre-hearing?
Yes.
Because they're not being included in that decision.
Yes, because you know that you're right, Michelle. That's delayed us a lot.
And we already seeing delays because of the current process that it would actually expedite and make up for having to have everyone's present.
Exactly. Again, this case that we're on right now has only taken us as long as it has because of holidays and attorney schedules, not because of the commission.
Well, actually, the attorneys have only declined 1 or 2 days.
Pardon?
The attorneys have only.
Lori, I think I think, Lori, that you need to provide those dates if you're making that claim,
I agree.
because that has not been like the recent experience that we've had.
Exactly.
So the process of scheduling dates is that the board determines the dates that they are available, give those dates to the attorneys, and only in a couple instances said that they are not available.
Right. And in order to say that is also to show the dates that were offered to them and then offered to the board that the board wasn't available. And also to add that there wasn't this like process in place before the first hearing. And now that we have a process down, it would be easier to identify dates, and like what Michelle and Nellie were saying, they would move the case forward.
Correct.
Do I have any further discussion?
Well, for,
I'll go ahead and call for the question.
I have a question. So, I mean, as far as
Oh.
dates, Lori, you're saying that it was more on the board than it was the council. What was the reason? For example, we only have one date for hearing this month.
That's right. One date available in the entire month of April, the board is available.
Now, was that the board or was that the council, either council?
Well, it's the board scheduling. I only bring forth dates to the attorneys if the board is available.
Well, so we need to prioritize those hearings. So how are we meeting today and not having a hearing meeting?
Because I think the lawyers weren't available today, if I recall.
Not
So
available.
that means that it wasn't based on our availability, it's also the lawyers in this month.
I'm sorry, this
And also the room.
Bernice was not available. That's why we did not schedule a hearing this evening.
Yeah, but she didn't have to be available because we made that rule that she could miss it and then we fill her in. That was what we did a couple of meetings ago.
We
If
canceled.
you're-
We never made that a rule. That is not we never made that a rule. We canceled the meeting when she was available.
Oh, that was the one she couldn't make and then they agreed to postpone it. But we did say something that to the
Lawyers-
extent that they had to miss. No, we did say something. Gabby, am I correct? We did, and Michelle, didn't we say something that night that Bernice couldn't make it? And we made some kind of decision on that night or the following night when we did get together, that if a board member could not make it for like health reasons or something like that, emergency, which does happen, that they could still continue on the hearing. We would just fill them in on what they missed. Didn't we? Don't I recall what we all talked about?
Yes,
Denise?
that decision
Gabby?
was made.
I
Yes,
That it
thought,
could
we
be
made a
canceled.
decision.
That was a
We
decision.
said that we would wait for them so that
yeah,
Yes,
I'm confused. I thought the decision was that if that weekend, that day that Bernice wasn't be able to make it, we canceled because I believe one of the attorneys was saying that he basically wanted all of the,
yes,
board to
yes.
hear.
He wanted all of us there. Yeah,
so the fact that he said he wouldn't want one of the board members to receive a transcript. So if that's
Right.
the case, then if someone's not able, for whatever reason, like you said, Manelli, things happen, emergencies,
Mhm.
things happen, that if someone can't make it to the hearing that day, we just cancel and go to the next hearing date. Is from what I
Yep.
remember.
So
Yep.
we've also been having like really like messy
I need to go to
schedules.
the Personnel Commission.
So I'm
They're at
concerned
5:10.
about scheduling. Shouldn't there be like a better?
Gabby's trying to get upstairs
I
to you
think
guys,
so
by
they're
the
over
way.
there on the fifth floor.
Yeah.
Okay. So
arbitrarily just throw it out and say that therefore we can't have everyone present when the whole purpose of that one key process is it's kind of like ignoring it, the whole picture.
Yeah.
Well, I think we can go back to that date
Fifth,
that
5:10.
we had that situation. Lori, if you can, I don't know, I'm sure there's minutes in there that we can refer to, but I think we all voted that day that if someone can't make it to an actual hearing, we cancel the hearing that day. And then there's no, that person just joins back. The next hearing date we convene. So it's what I remember. I don't remember.
Bye.
I think one of the councils did not want a board member who wasn't present at the hearing to just read a transcript. And now, so I don't know. I mean, I think we have minutes on it.
Well, it's whether we, because I'm sure we all have our own notes, which I'm gonna go grab.
That's not a pre-hearing then.
Yeah, because we don't, unless our conversations are recorded, like literally physically recorded, not just note taking. There's no way to ascertain exactly what the decision was to make. So I'm gonna get my notes.
Well, the board would have to vote on something, so those votes are all recorded, and there was no vote on changing the rules. Hey, Gabby, come on. It was in March.
Yeah, but.
It was
during the hearing.
Yeah, it wasn't.
I'm pulling out my extensive minutes.
We wouldn't have voted on it. We're just learning how to like motion and second it and stuff like that.
So it was in March and it was recorded, the discussion took place during the hearing. And so we did not record that portion of it. But there was no vote taken except for the only vote that was taken that evening was to end the meeting so that we can reconvene the hearing when Bernice was present.
Yeah, but I remember us making a decision going forward, and I don't remember if it was that same night or if it was the following night when the next night that we all got back together.
Yeah, I don't remember that either. I just remember we were in the 1600, whatever, the downstairs, the big room where she couldn't make it. And then we did vote to reconvene because I believe one of the councils did not want it to be given to a transcript. And then Nellie, I think you're right. We came back the following hearing and I think we voted before hearing started. Either it was hearing or it was a rules meeting. I'm not too sure.
Well, we can address this in a minute, but right now we have motion on the table. And the motion on the table, and it has been motioned and seconded to alter the who is attending the pre-hearing required to attend by saying the board instead of the board chair, the vice chair.
Well, I'm gonna do something real quick. I did say it, but Denise was speaking, and being that she is our chair, I quieted down. I did call for the question.
Yep.
Which does stop all discussion.
Okay.
So we're voting on this. Gabriela Hernandez Castillo.
Can you repeat what the voting is on again, please?
The motion is to change from the board chair, the vice chair, the board's legal advisor, and the board secretary will also be present at the pre-hearing conference to the board's legal advisor, and the board secretary will also be present at the pre-hearing conference, requiring that there be a quorum and this meeting be noticed to the public.
Thank you.
And so now we're voting. Gabriela Hernandez Castillo. Yes. Nelly Legaspi.
Yes.
Denise Naranjo.
Yes.
Michelle Polito.
Yes.
Rivera.
Yes.
Gary Wood.
I have respect for the fellow board members and their wish on this.
I'm
but
sorry, call for the question. There is no discussion once the vote is being taken. So yes or no.
My vote is no.
The motion carries. Do we want to go through any other sections? We mentioned at the pre-hearing conference, the chair will make the determination whether the matter is ready for hearing. This is, I mean,
This will be the board as well.
do we
And
have,
we did talk about that. We did talk about that in the very beginning, that we were going to change it to the board rather than to just the chair. After having COVID brain twice, now I'm remembering all the things we talked about.
Also, can we, Jenna, I know you were asked this question a while ago about what is determined and what is involved in the pre-hearing.
It's all set forth in the rules. So it looks like discovery disputes, and then they determine if, if those discovery disputes are completed. I believe there is an exchange of the witness list. I mean, it's also, I don't want to, I'm just reading it. There's exchange of witness lists and exhibit lists pursuant to 2.5.3. There's also 2.5.4, which says other matters, which again, evidentiary discovery disputes, and then a determination of whether the hearing is for conference or ready for to go forward.
I just wanted, so we can all kind of just refresh ourselves, but thank you.
Sure.
Do I have a motion to change in this paragraph, everything from chair to board and I will read it. At the pre-hearing conference, the board will make the determination of whether the matter is ready for hearing. If the board determines that the matter is not ready for hearing, for instance, because of a pending discovery dispute, a date for a subsequent pre-hearing conference may be set, or the matter may be set for hearing in lieu of the pending issues in anticipation that they will be resolved prior to the hearing at the discretion of the board. If issues pending from the pre-hearing conference are not resolved in a timely manner, the board may decide to continue the pre-hearing conference or to proceed to hearing. Do I have a motion for this change?
I, Nelly Legaspi, so move.
Do I have a second?
I will second. Michelle Polita.
Any discussion?
Yeah, this is Board Member Wood. So my question is going to be for the attorney, Jenna, and for the city. If this is quorumed and the board is voting on the decision of the pre-hearing conference, if one or two members are not at the pre-hearing conference, are they precluded from joining in the hearing and making the determination at the end? Because now we've opened it up as a full meeting. Is that going to preclude anyone who can't make the pre-hearing from sitting on the trial?
So I
No, but maybe we could put a sentence.
I think that needs to be specified, but I would also, sitting here today, I haven't searched, that. And if that needs to be have a further legal review, not only from me, but also the city attorney. So I don't know. But I do think that is the direction of the board that stated that a board member would not be precluded. I can't say anything here today that the legality of that, so, or if there are any legal.
Jenna, do you see, for example, Gary's question, if you see a council member, council, so one of the attorneys throwing it out, or a case going a different way, or something happening if someone was not present for pre-hearing?
That was my concern here.
Yeah.
I'm sure they will. They're going to find any reason they want to negate what happens for their client or against it. The bottom line is we're empowering the board as a whole to make decisions that we are fiduciarily responsible for in the end. So if a board member can't be at pre-hearing and they're not able to participate, but they're able to see a summary of it, then that still will meet that minimum requirement. So I think if we sit here and we try and argue about all the different scenarios, we're not going to get this done. And that's why this document was so outdated to begin with.
The background of, without speaking too much to the hearing that we're going through right now, we are seeing issues, but the issues are because the board members aren't invited to pre-hearing. So if it could be thrown out because members aren't there during pre-hearing, that's a current issue, because as the current rules stand, they are not being invited.
Exactly. That's a perfect example right there. Because you might have some commission members that aren't comfortable signing off on something or agreeing to something or even making a decision to something because they weren't included from the beginning. And all of us holding fiduciary responsibility for this, that means that if we want to protect ourselves, we're not going to vote on something because we weren't there in the beginning. That's like sometimes when we don't approve minutes in the past. You know, our chair is supposed to be running the meeting. Our chair is supposed to be asking for the approval of the minutes. We should be approving them if we were there or were knowledgeable about them, at least had a chance to read them. So that's customary on how boards and councils run across the board. So I think we need to be in alignment with that.
My only other concern would be that if you have a pre-hearing with 7 or I'm not sure how many members are on our board, let's say all 7 members, and it's for some reason the vote is 4-3 to go forward with the hearing, and 3 people were saying that we should not, that would open up a lot of instances where a counsel attorney could argue that the case wasn't ready, but it was because obviously 3 members said it wasn't. It's just, to me, it really opens a can of worms, and that's my fear. I do understand.
And during the conference and during the hearings and during our caucuses, we can beat that stuff out and be able to
that would be
have the members feel comfortable. So it'll work out in the mix in the end, just like we have. If Gary, you haven't been able to be on it, but believe me, we've worked through some issues and we've come to a cohesive kind of agreement, and that's why we've been flowing so well, because we listen to each other. And so that's how a good board functions, with no preconceived sides or anything like that. We just go in there and we chew it up and we talk it out and we work it out, and at the end of the day we come to a decision. So that the attorneys are going to make any excuses they want, but whatever, they're going to do whatever they want. In the end, we need to have transparency and cohesiveness, and I think this is going to do it. And with that, I'm going to, for sake of time, I'm going to call for the question again.
Gabriela Hernandez Castillo.
Yes.
Nelly Legaspi.
Yes.
Denise Naranjo.
Yes.
Michelle Polito. Michelle Polito.
Yes, sorry. I don't know if you can.
Angie Rivera.
Yes.
Gary Wood.
Yes.
The motion carries. Do I have a motion to insert something to say that missing the meeting, or should we address that all at the entire all meetings that they're on or off the board? So do I have a motion, insert something into the pre-hearing stating that if somebody does not attend, they are not off the case? So
I think that's safe. That's it. That you can put something in a I forget what they're called, but not parentheses, but that little special mark where it says would have to be an appointed commissioner not in attendance is not precluded from the hearing after reading transcripts, or
well, we're talking about the pre-hearing right now.
Pre-hearing. Okay, so then you're gonna have transcripts. So yeah, you can stick some legal words there.
Right there in 3.5.
Can we
Oh,
add
yeah.
one part to that, with agreement of the appellant? So like, if they think that it would affect their due process to not have the whole board there, then we should allow them that.
I think if we leave it up to the attorneys, we're giving them too much power. I think the board needs to make this.
Yeah.
And sometimes
need to-
the appellant may not be there either. I mean, most of the time they might not be there. So we may do.
And we got to remember something. I'm sorry, Denise. My apologies. I was just going to say we got to remember something. A certain attorney likes to tell us we don't follow the rules. Well, here's the rules. We're going to follow them. Janet, what would you suggest for the wording for this part?
Absent a board member's absence at the pre-hearing conference will not preclude them from hearing. From
That's good.
participating at the hearing. Or what do we use? Let me look at the top.
While you're typing that out, does there have to be a quorum to have the pre-conference hearing? Have we already said that?
There will have to be, yes.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, that goes without saying. As with every voting body, there's always a growing pain period for the first few months. And we went through it, and this is gonna help. We still have some, but this will help a lot.
Do I have a motion to add this sentence in to 2.5? A board member's absence at the pre-hearing conference will not preclude them from participating in the hearing.
So I know the Gatsby so moved.
Board Member Wood, I second it.
Gabriela, is there any discussion? Gabriela Hernandez Castillo,
Yes.
Nelly Legaspi,
Yes,
Denise Naranjo,
Yes.
Michelle Polito, Michelle Polito,
Yes, sorry, are you guys able to hear me?
Yes. Hello?
Angie Rivera,
Yes.
Gary Wood,
Yes.
the motion carries. The other issue that we have discussed, and I believe needs to be addressed in the rules, is 3. I think it's 3.5. 3.2. 3.2.
3.2, roll of the board.
So in the role of the board, it states, this process, adjudicatory process, is performed by the members of the board in attendance at the hearing, which requires that a majority of the same board members hear and deliberate on all of the issues. So this has always been taken to mean that if a board member is not physically present at the meeting, that they, at a hearing, that they are no longer able to make a decision at the rest of the hearing, for that hearing. If the board wants to change this, I believe this is where it would be changed. So I don't know I don't know how the board stands on this, but this is, I think, clear.
Sentence that says unless otherwise stated in the rules, because we already just added the sentence up above.
That was in the pre-conference. That's
Yeah,
completely.
this is separate.
But I thought you had proposed that we make a decision in general for all the attendance.
No, that was regarding the pre-hearing conference.
So that's what we're talking about.
Now we're
Yeah,
at,
Gabby, that's pre-hearing. We were talking about the beginning, that just the chair and the vice, well, originally it was just the chair.
right.
And then the letter of the rule was the chair and the vice chair. So we had proposed back then that we wanted the whole board. Now we're talking about, okay, we went through pre-hearing, now we're at the actual hearing. And this is what we discussed when Bernice couldn't be there. So do we want to, how do we want to address the section? If somebody can't be at one night's hearing, are they out for the rest, or are they going to be given transcripts to be filled in, or are they just going to be canceled? Because it's going to all, Jenna, this is what we went through, right? The attorneys, if they don't agree.
And then we
Right.
voted on canceling it and then rescheduling. And that's what the
Mhm.
lawyers were okay with. And they
That's what they
both
wanted.
do that.
Then, but to put it in your rules would have helped us to have decided that issue, because the rules were not
Right,
right. We weren't really sure
right.
what that. So if the board as a council wants to make a decision on this, then if this happens again, then have your rules to rely on, and you can look at them and say, hey, this is in here and this is the authority that where we can go. So what suggestion is to say something like, if a member of the board who has heard a part of an appeal is absent a day of hearing, the board can decide to adjourn the hearing until the next scheduled hearing day, or continue the case without the absent board member. And then if the latter board member shall not participate in the hearing for its duration. That way, you're not making a hard and fast rule that, anytime someone's absent, you're just going to continue it. Because what if you just get you guys are great board members. What if you get a bad board member that stop showing up?
Right.
To do the hearing?
Right.
See, I mean, that gives you flexibility to either, if it's an excused absence, you can say, okay, this is obviously what we had happen. It was a kind of a fluke, but that gives you the ability to continue it without the.
Well, let's think of it this way. So Jenna, it's been a long time since I've actually sat on jury duty because I usually get out of it. So when the jury is seated and they have alternates, which of course we don't, but when the jury is seated and let's say they're in deliberation or they're in the hearing and a jury member gets sick, let's forget that they have alternates. What do they do if something like that happens?
I think it depends. I think that 9 times out of 10, they would, as long as they have a sufficient number of jurors in deliberations, they would probably just move forward because the courts have things moving forward, and they would take that out.
Would they take that juror out?
Yeah.
So that juror would be removed from the case.
Yeah, as long as there was a sufficient number of voting jurors. I could imagine if you had, an emergency situation though, and you did not have a number of jurors and you tried the entire case, they might, try to figure out how to wait for that juror to come back.
Right. So I'm just thinking about how life is with good old COVID, because it's still around along with the flu and everything else. Guys, how do we want to address this? We want it because this is a heavy thing. Like Jenna said, we have to cancel the last one and go forward. This is our opportunity to put the verbiage in here on how we want this to be addressed going forward.
That's a good question. My question would be, if we leave it up to the board to have the flexibility, which Jenna, you mentioned to begin with, which I kind of like, would the attorneys for both sides need to agree to that? Or could they, even if the board said they wanted to go ahead and continue that hearing with one person missing and fill them in with transcripts, could the employee's attorney contest that?
Probably will.
I mean, in a way, they could just suddenly get up and walk out, and then it would have to be rescheduled.
Yeah.
Is there?
I think that we can put some kind of, just so that we're being empathetic and cognizant of the future with the next, this is a living document that we're leaving. And it is possible that, when we get a huge turnaround with the majority again within the council and their appointees, they might not like what we did and they might try and change it all over again. I mean, that's totally possible. But for now, going forward, I think we should put something in here that says if a board member cannot be in attendance for emergency reasons, and I would emphasize emergency reasons, and then if we have to define it in the subtext or something, we can do that. Death, mutilation, an accident, whatever. Throw it out there. They can continue on with the hearing with the transcripts. So that is going to mean extra time for them to sit down and read the transcripts, and that's going to mean extra cost for the court recorder to produce those. But I think in the long run, it's going to be more valuable. Now, if the attorneys don't like it within the hearing, they can walk out, they can cancel it, they can opt to do that. But at least we have some flexibility and wiggle room when life happens to our board members going forward.
I'll just comment, Nellie, that, if we're going to have them read the transcripts can take, we didn't get these transcripts for months.
Okay.
they're not supposed to take that long, but then, so for instance, in our situation, I think we had a hearing scheduled on Monday and the following Monday, we canceled on this Monday. Chances are we wouldn't have had the transcripts by the following Monday.
Yeah, I mean,
Right,
I think
okay.
that we might be able to pay for the transcripts to be turned around immediately, but I can't promise that. Because there was a huge delay and I can't promise that, but there may be, for a fee, you can have them turned around immediately, but I don't know that, because they're in the evening, so I can promise that, but even so it wouldn't be the shortened version, it would be the long version, it would be the raw version with, 150 pages or more, so then the board member would need to read those 100 and whatever, how many ever pages. And it's at least it's well over 100 pages. Before
Right.
Have
So
a
what do we
process
do?
for recording a closed session?
those are the
Because
scripts from
if
the.
we had a process where we could keep it private, but that we had it recorded, that would eliminate all this issue. As long as we are meeting all the laws.
But wouldn't that be up to the appellant to have it recorded or not? Or I'm not too
I'm not
sure.
sure. I guess we would have to see, are there any other cities that do that?
And
That's
also,
an interesting question.
yeah, if the missing board member has to read these transcripts, for example, I know we've been talking about having consecutive days of hearing. So
Mhm.
let's just say we have Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and one board member misses Tuesday. Does that hold up Wednesday and Thursday for that person to read? Well, one, to turn around the transcripts, and two, for that person to read possibly 150 pages. Does that now
Right.
delay Thursday and Friday, Wednesday and Friday's hearing date?
Wouldn't the purpose of getting all this information would be to make a decision at the end? So getting the transcript before like a verdict or a decision is made.
Yeah, that's true.
Necessarily have to be
Yeah,
for the
Yeah,
next.
that makes, yeah,
Yeah.
that makes sense. Didn't think about that.
well, it's true. They're gonna have to be available for us at the end of this current hearing anyways,
Yeah.
because we're not all, Einsteins over here with hard memories.
I think the only thing that would be missing from that day would be the opportunity for that board member to ask questions pertaining to that witness during that day, especially if that witness maybe is not coming back the following day. So that would only be the miss I could possibly see.
How about if
So there,
Heard of it.
I would think that we want to be able to go forward and not preclude exclude the person from continuing on with the hearing, but we have to figure out what's going to be a good remedy to fill them in. Is it transcripts? Is it our questions and answers that we write down? How are we going to decide how we're going to deal with that?
In my opinion, in a real world scenario, in a real world, I'm sorry, it's board member Wood. If this was a real case and you had 12 jurors, if one of them got sick or passed away, they would put an alternate in there. And if they couldn't fill the 12 seats, they would have to wait until that person got better and came back. There's nothing that stops us from saying in this language that as long as, if you start with 6 or 7 board members in this case, and the intent is to do this consecutively and try to get them done quicker. So Monday through Thursday, Monday through Friday, as long as you have a quorum still that's hearing the case, why would you have to try to fill somebody back in quickly instead of just hearing the case? And as long as you have a quorum at the end, the case can be decided because you've got a voting majority. That would be, that's my opinion, is that when you start a case, that there can be no reason not to miss it unless you fall below a quorum. Then you're going to have to wait for that person to come back. Maybe that would solve this issue.
But the point is that are we going to exclude that person who had an emergency, who missed one meeting, from continuing on with the hearing? That's the remedy we need to decide right now.
Right, and my point would be that we would preclude them because we want to get these cases done quickly. We would preclude them so long as we had a majority still of a quorum.
And I don't know that will work because one of the attorneys, the employee's attorney, did make a statement when our board fell below 7. He made a statement that he wanted it noted that there was now only 6 board members rather than 7. And he just wanted that to be put on the record. So
Well,
We
if
kind of
that's
already knew what that was about.
right, but if that's already occurred, then why are we discussing this? We should be saying that we need to cancel the meeting until that same board can hear the case. Or at least say in the language that the board has the authority or the right to excuse that absence of that member and let them sit in if both attorneys agree.
Well, we're not going to wait for them to agree because they're never going to agree with each
Right,
other.
but if you've already had attorneys say that they did not want to continue the case because you fell from 7 to 6, this is going to be an issue. So I
It
would
was
just,
only the employees, it was only the employee's attorney, which if I was the employee's attorney, I'd say the same thing.
oh,
So,
no, absolutely.
yeah, he did that for the record. So we knew what that was about. So I think that if we make a statement that, and Lori, chime in, because I know you've heard us say this over and over again. If a member misses for an emergency, we can either 1, cancel and or 2, go forward. But that's what we need to decide.
Either,
If we want to cancel or go forward.
so you're saying that if somebody misses, if somebody is unable to attend due to an emergency, the board may cancel the hearing until the next scheduled meeting or move forward without that board member on the hearing?
And the board member would continue being on the hearing. They would just have to catch up. But I'm trying to think of Jenna, how would we legally do that? Do we want to put that person for having an emergency, like, somebody dies, an accident, gravely ill? Because if they're gravely ill and they can't be in for the whole week, do we cancel that hearing for that week? Or do we go forward with it and fill in the board member when they're able? Worst case scenario.
I've only heard it done 2 ways, and it's either that person does not participate in the hearing, or they are able to catch up before the next hearing date. So without, researching and again, having the city attorney approve this, I'm not sure what else.
What would you advise, Jenna?
I would either just, like I said, I think you give yourself the discretion if they're absent, then you can either decide to adjourn the hearing until the next scheduled hearing date or continue it up without the board member, but the board member shouldn't participate. I think is the easiest way, because then we don't have to wait for transcripts and deal with that.
So then I mean, see what the rest of the team thinks. I would suggest that if a board member cannot be present on one of the nights, the board would go forward. And then, like you said, they would have to play catch up, whichever way. But we know no matter what we come up with here, the employees' attorneys aren't going to like it. So Denise, what do you think?
I thought I just heard Jenna say that if you asked what she thought, and her opinion was that we should not do that. We should say that the board should cancel that session or preclude that member from sitting on the case. Jenna, is that what you said?
Yeah.
Right. So
what do you think, Denise and Gabby and Angie?
I think my opinion, I keep going back to, our responsibility in many ways. One being for, fiduciary is, I think that if they're unable to make it, for example, we had one and we just canceled and then we just reconvened. And I think that was, I think that was great because, things do happen. And I know everybody takes, our, the commission very seriously and nobody wants to miss, but there are things that happen in life. But I think that I would prefer canceling and just reconvening. I think there's going to have to be a discussion. For example, if somebody gets seriously, gravely ill, we can't continue to cancel. If it's just one time, it was a car accident. Okay, yeah, usually if they're okay, they're probably going to be back, maybe the next day if there's hearing the next day or the next week, whichever it is. But if someone, a very, a terminal illness or something happens where we're going to have to then remove that person for the board and then move forward.
I agree. I like that. Michelle, what do you think?
I think so. Right now we're going back and forth between having a speedy trial or offering a speedy trial or due process where all the board members are present that are going to be making decisions on the case.
Right. So if something were to happen and you got sick and we were in the next hearing and you got sick and you had to miss one night of the hearing, would you prefer us to just cancel and then pick up on the next night? So, and it's still expeditious and it's still going forward and it still has the cohesiveness of the whole board. So would you think that that's better just to do it that way?
Another option, I think, to think about it, maybe if it's a board member is absent one day, we can cancel. But if we don't know if a board member is able to return because of a
Mhm.
serious illness, whatever it may be, then I think then that's when we just continue with the case. But if someone, it's one day, okay, then we can reschedule for one day. But if it goes beyond one day, I think we have to then excuse that board member and continue with the case.
And I think I agree. That's a good idea.
I say, like, if it's a singular like emergency event, then you reschedule. However, if it appears to be an ongoing conflict, then the board will need to decide to remove the member from the trial.
I think there's language there that we can utilize. Jenna, do you think you can
There's other commissions that,
encapsulate our thoughts?
Gabby,
there's other commissions that haven't stated that if members miss 3 consecutive meetings, that they're dismissed from the board.
well, it's stated in all the rules for all the commissions and boards that if there's three unexcused absences, that's why we go through, yeah.
Mhm.
So three,
Because
yeah.
they're saying, well, there's a certain amount and it's already
Yeah.
stated.
Oh, okay, so the 3, so that we're using that. Okay. The board meeting.
That might not be a bad idea if we're mirroring. I mean, personnel commission's a lot different than the other commissions, but I think for consistency, we can use that same language. I mean, I don't foresee it happening, but you never can tell. So I think that gives us some, like I said, consistency. If a board member is not able to attend a hearing, we will cancel. And then if it's found out to be 3 consecutive nights that they can't be in attendance, they're removed from the board, period, or the hearing. And instead of the board, the
I like
hearing.
that. I like that. It gives more context to the rule.
I would
So they would just be removed from the hearing after 3 nights.
suggest leaving it in the discretion of the board and giving them the option either way.
Right.
That's a good, that's right. That's absolutely right. Because I mean, just leave it the way you've got it written right now, and the board can make that decision. If it's 2, 3, 4 nights, then they can decide to go ahead and remove them. But this way,
Well, we can't leave it the way it is, Gary, because that's.
no, I'm saying leave it the way that Lori has amended it to be right here. The board has, yeah. That's my.
Yeah, I would leave the board to have flexibility to choose the number of days, because you might decide, the board, you may decide that 1 day, 2 days is okay, but 3 days, it just really depends on maybe the position of the case, the hearing. You might be at the very end, or,
Oh, yeah.
sitting and like, okay, well, 5, you're gonna miss a whole week and we have 5 days consecutive, but that's okay, because we can just reschedule them. I don't know, I would just be careful about not listing days and let the board decide at that time.
So we'll just keep it as the board to apply its discretion. This way we keep ownership of it. I like it.
I would
All that discussion just to decide we like it.
after the or, instead of saying that, say continue to hear the case without the absent board member. If the last,
Oh, let me get to it.
the board member shall not participate in the hearing for its duration. If
Please be appropriate remedy.
comma, the board member shall not, or you say the absent board member.
Wait, I'm sorry, where are you? The absent.
I know, I got lost.
Without the absent board member. Okay, the new sentence, if the latter. Comma. The board member shall not participate in the hearing for its duration, for its entirety. For,
The remaining of the hearing or the hearing?
will not participate in the remainder of the hearing, that also works too.
All right, let me read this out. If a board member is unable to attend a hearing date due to an emergency, the board may adjourn the hearing until the next scheduled hearing date or continue to hear the case without the absent board member. If the latter, the board member, will not participate in the remainder of the hearing. That's not a complete sentence.
We don't need the second comment.
Okay.
If the latter,
Board member? Oh, wait.
the board member will not participate in the remainder of the hearing.
Oh, if the, okay, I see here. Okay, if the latter.
So doesn't that undo what we were just saying? If we're saying is unable to attend a hearing, that means one missed, and say that board didn't want that member on the hearing, they could then use that opportunity from like one emergency to take them off the case. Didn't it say?
Yeah, I don't like that,
The actual board.
or. I think it's
you're-
better to just keep it definitive, like we were saying, may adjourn the hearing until the next scheduled hearing date, period. In the occasion that the member is going to miss more than one hearing date, then that member would be removed from the remainder of the hearing.
But what if it's the last night of the hearing and you've got, seven, you're supposed to have 7 and 6 are there, why not just excuse that person and finish the case? So why not leave it like this and give the board the flexibility to make those decisions based on each circumstance, because they're all going to be different. And I'm sure in
Yeah,
most
but that's
cases.
assuming that it's the one night. Let's pretend it's not the last night of the hearing. It's the
Then the
second
board-
night of
Then
the,
the board would make that decision at that time based on its second night and use their rational, decision making to say, let's go ahead and cancel this meeting and wait for that person to come back. But I really like this language because it gives the board the flexibility to decide case by case, and instead of tying us to so many days, whether it's 1, 2, or 3.
I feel more comfortable if it said scheduled hearing date, period.
I think there's some confusion. I think there's some board members who think that if somebody misses a date, they should still continue on the board. Is that right, Gabby? That's what Gabby's saying, that if somebody misses a night, they can still continue with the hearing. The hearing can go on schedule that evening without one board member, and then the next hearing date, that board member will attend. And so I think that's the understanding by Gabby. And so that's where the confusion is coming around. I don't know how many board members, so I don't know if that needs to be decided. Are we gonna allow the board member to continue if they do miss and we continue with the hearing, or are we just, so I think there's more than one question here.
I think it needs to, well, I'm not confused. It's very clearly states if the board member is unable to attend a hearing date to an emergency, the board may adjourn the hearing until the next scheduled hearing date. That's where I'm saying it should say period. Not, if I just found out that someone on our board got into a car accident tonight and they're okay, but they're in the emergency room, I'm not going to sit there and say, okay, well, they're off the board. Let's continue on with the hearing tonight. I'm going to say, let's cancel it until our next hearing or next night. And if for some reason we come to the next night, let's say it's 2 days later, and the person still can't come, well, then we can remove them from the rest of the hearing. But this or thing, that's the problem I have with it. Because some people will, some boards in the hearing of future may say, well, you know what, we've got this or here, so we're going to take that. Sorry, you had an emergency, you're off the board. I mean, you're off the hearing.
Well, Nellie, the way, what you're stating, this actually gives the board even more flexibility so that the board can make a decision right then and there, knowing what the situation is. Okay, they're in the emergency room. We know that they're not going to be able to continue. They're so very injured or they're so very sick. We know they're not going to be able to continue. So we can just go ahead and remove them now, or we can wait and, reschedule and remove them later. So I think that what you're stating makes it really clear. What Gabby is stating is that she thinks that somebody can miss a meeting, a hearing, and still continue on the case.
Yeah, I thought we had decided that if they missed one, we were just gonna cancel and go to the next
They would,
night. So,
they would
Yeah, we
remain,
have-
well, they would
Right.
remain if we cancel a meeting
Yeah.
and they didn't miss it.
Okay,
right, exactly.
then that, if that's, so it would end before, or that whole thing would be.
Well, then that's stating, well, I'm just saying, I want to give the board flexibility, because if we just say it will hearing until the next hearing date, period, then we have to keep on pushing back. We may know that a board member is so injured or so ill that they will not be able to attend ever. And so it doesn't give the flexibility for the board to say, hey, you know, unfortunately, something came up and this person is unable to continue, so then we can remove them.
But that, making that, we just continue as is. That's already the situation now, that,
Are we removing with this sentence the ability to allow them to read the transcripts though? Because if it's just not a key witness and we're only in this sentence offering we either reschedule or we continue, then we're not allowing to continue, but keep them and allow them to read transcripts. Or do we want to just decide now so that it's not a discussion in further hearing?
Well, I think that's what we were talking about, Michelle, that getting the transcripts and all that is not always as easy as we would like. So my only thing is I just have an issue. I don't mind the other sentence, but I'd rather have a period after the date, a new sentence. The board may also, or the board may continue to hear the case without the absent board member, if that's the case. You know what I'm saying? I'm trying to split it so that it's not a, oh, you can do this or this. It's defined. This is the first step. This is the second step. So if the board member misses a night for an emergency, and we might not know that same night if they're going to be available for the next night. So let's say they let staff know the next day, yes, I'm available, or no, I'm not available. Then that next sentence, the board may continue to hear the case without the absent board member for the remaining of the hearing. Do you see what I'm saying? It's like if you put an or in there, then there's too much stuff. You end it with a sentence and make the second choice, then we know what to do after the first night.
Yeah, I think you can combine the 2 second sentences too, like she just said. Continue the case without the absent board member. For the remainder,
Who will not participate in the remainder of the hearing?
like that.
That way it's more definitive. It's not so much, I don't know what the word is. I'm trying to remember and I can't think of it, but it's either A or B. And so if A happens and then B results in 2 days that they're going to be out, then the board can go forward without that board member for the rest of the hearing. And they'll know that, and it's in writing. So there's no need for discussion. It's like, you weren't there first night, okay, we cancel it, but you couldn't be there for second and third night, beyond your control. We're going to go forward and we'll see you at the next hearing. And that's it. And then it also alleviates a lot of stress too.
Are you looking for ambiguity?
There you go. Thank you. God, I'm telling you, COVID took like a lot of my brain cells.
Oh, Michelle,
Oh, you guys don't know. I just had COVID again when I got back from Arizona.
oh my gosh.
Yeah, so this is third time to charm, and I'm still breathing. So
So Michelle, the way that this is written, it is basically stating that if somebody misses and it goes on without them, they cannot be transferred and catch up. So that's what we're seeing here. I just want to be really clear.
yeah,
Okay.
they'll catch up via our notes. So that means we keep good notes.
Oh, wait, no, Nelly. If
Oh no, we'll cancel. That's right. I'm sorry. I told you, COVID brain. I got it. They
Okay.
missed the first night. We cancel. They mix the second night. We move on without them. Thank you.
okay, so if the board decides to go on, then that person is off the case.
Correct.
Okay, I just want to make sure we're all really clear as to what we're voting for.
Yeah.
well, the language you have currently written is not stating that. Because it's still giving us either or. So it should say if a board member is unable to attend a hearing due to an emergency for one meeting, the board will adjourn the hearing until the next scheduled hearing date. If that same member misses the subsequent meeting, the board may continue without that member and they're off the case. I mean, it really needs to be a little bit clear.
I like
You
that.
can do that. You can put step 1, step 2, or what.
I mean, that's
Derek
kind of what
said.
you were looking, yeah, you were trying to head for that, Valley. So, I mean,
Thank you. It's not often somebody can read my mind, but thank you.
Let's pretend that the person misses day 1, but comes back on day 2, and then misses day 3. What do you guys do? What does this language to you mean?
I would be the same thing. I would read it as the same way. If they miss one night for an emergency, they come back the next night, they're fine. But then the third night they're gone. It's the same thing. They're gone. They're done for the hearing.
Oh, so each board member gets 1 pass, 1 emergency?
Well, an emergency, like, like I said, what an emergency is: grave illness, family death, car accident. Not somebody ran over your cat. That's not an emergency. Sorry.
And I think we've proven, that we're not missing hearing dates. I think it only happened
No.
once, and with Bernice, and I don't foresee this board, using that emergency get out of hearing card,
Yeah.
I don't see them using that. So I mean, I think that, missing 1, if someone was going to miss 2, I think they would know that I mean, obviously they're very, very, ill. And I think they'd understand us moving on without them.
Well, I think you, Nellie made, your comment about hitting a cat. I mean, you are creating ambiguity here because.
Oh, I was joking. Sorry, I have a very dry sense of humor today, so
That
I
makes
was joking.
an emergency to that person.
Yeah, no, I know.
I mean, I think this is getting, I don't know. I would.
Too literal.
I think maybe you just say if a board member is unable to attend one day of the hearing, period, regardless, the board may adjourn.
Yeah.
Well, it doesn't matter for what reason. It can be unexcused.
Yeah.
It can be excused, whatever.
I think that the definition of emergency, everyone will have their own definition of emergency that pertains to their
Exactly.
emergency. So I think,
Yeah,
I
take out
agree.
emergency.
yeah, someone's cat being ran over could be someone's emergency, depending on how attached they are to the cat.
We should only be missing if it's emergency. So I think that's a broad definition. It's hard to figure out like what is and what isn't. If that person is missing, we're just gonna assume that it's because of an important reason, but they cannot. make
And they don't even actually have to tell us what the emergency is if we're going to start talking about the laws. Per HIPAA, they don't have to share with us what the emergency was.
No,
We really want to get literal.
and really, I think we just have to have some trust within each other that we're not using this very, loosely.
We just
Right.
change it to excused absence.
I think that if we have excused absence, then it just, I don't think that meets the criteria for like why we need
right.
like a hearing date. A hearing date, right, is agreed upon date that we figure out.
Yeah,
Or
the
with a
prior date.
Well, what if somebody just doesn't show up?
Right.
Like, let's say there
Wow.
could be a car accident, they could just totally forget. We don't know, but they just don't show up.
Right.
So at that night, use their absence or not. I mean, typically, based on what we've said in the past, we would. So I wouldn't put excuse, not excuse, because we don't know at the time. But so in this instance, then we would stop the hearing, during the hearing, go to the next date, hopefully be able to contact them. And if we can't contact them, then we say, okay, they're off the case. But if we can contact them, then maybe we can figure something. Give the board an option to figure something out. The next hearing date may be the next day.
Correct.
And they, I don't, so I
Remove due to an emergency.
one
Like,
day, no, I'm not gonna stop you, but I wanna, we can give the board some flexibility to make a decision at that moment, based on the circumstances. I think it would be best to do that. But I mean, it's up to whatever you guys want to put in here.
yeah, I
Really
think the part due to an emergency, since we've already had back and forth about what is an emergency, makes sense.
I'm sorry, what did you say at the beginning?
To remove the highlighted due to an emergency.
That's good. I like that. Because it's right. We agree to the hearing dates prior. If there's any conflict, we voice it at that time. So something comes up, we don't, like you said, we don't hear from them, then we cancel that night. And if they don't show up the next night, we move on.
Right, and if you leave it less structured like we're doing here, it gives the board the ability to hear all these, the different scenarios, because there's going to be a lot of different scenarios. If you leave it like this, then it allows us to be able to make those decisions as each one occurs, without putting a lot of tying our hands on each one of them. So this looks good.
Do I have a motion to alter the language to read, if a board member is unable to attend a hearing date, the board may adjourn the hearing until the next scheduled hearing date. The board may continue to hear the case without the absent board member who will not participate in the remainder of the hearing.
I, Nelly, so move.
I second it, Denise.
And we'll vote. Gabriela Hernandez.
Yes.
Nelly Legaspi,
Yes.
Denise Naranjo,
Yes.
Michelle Polito,
Yes.
Rivera,
Yes.
Gary Wood.
Yes.
The motion carries.
Yay.
I believe there's only one other section to note, and that would be earlier in, there's some language in here that's copied over charter that we recommend that we just remove and refer people to the charter so that we don't have to keep updating it and checking it.
Oh, okay.
And so it just directly refers everybody to the specific part of the chart. That there's, you get there it is. So just all deleted and it refers them to the charter. So this is
What page?
2.1, section 2.1. And it does have it. Where it is. So that would be page numbers 5 through 7. Very bottom of page 5. And then we've inserted this here. Nothing herein is intended to conflict with the municipal code or charter. And to the extent there's a conflict, the municipal code and or charter control, which is copied, from the
That's good.
code, I think. And then all this that was copied from there, instead of referring to it and putting the reference in there, we just deleted that so that there's no question. And these are the rules for the personnel board. So this just addresses the rules, not things that are outside of the purview of the personnel board.
That's good. It makes it more simplistic. I like it.
We've inserted the table of contents as noted. Took a look at it from an ADA perspective and what would a screen reader be able to read? What would it sound like when a screen reader read through it? And that's why we did not insert a table. If you insert a table when a screen reader is reading, it actually inputs table row 1, column 1, and then it reads the content.
Oh, okay.
And it reads the contents. And so it's actually more difficult to understand anything listed in a table unless you're specifically identifying things within that table. So I did not insert a table because of that. And the screen reader would just read through a list like it's intended as a list.
No, I like it. It looks really good and it's gonna be a lot easier for not just the future commissions, but also the public to be able to look at this and understand it.
I looked at some of the other cities and they had the table and it was actually easier to understand. So, and like if we're not losing anything, like we're not taking anything out, we're just adding in it.
With the screen reader for ADA compliance, or you're just saying you just looked at it in general? I thought we were considering it for,
Michelle, we're talking for people who can't, who cannot, who can't see, who want to hear it. It's the way the ADA, the way the accessibility for those who cannot see, who have to listen to it, how that automatic reader reads what's on the screen. It makes a big difference of the words that you use.
Right. So can we then put a table and invert what we would have put in column and row so that it's all read in one?
Contents is good. You don't need to say, it doesn't need to say table of contents. Just contents is fine like that.
no, we're talking about, there's one place in here on 3.1.2. Let me get down to that section on 3.1.2.
I think we were talking about adding like fax and then putting like the fax address and adding email and putting the email address and adding phone number and putting the phone number and adding like the actual property address and putting the address of where you would send your appeal. I think having a table is appropriate. I mean, it simplifies everything, and looking at the other cities like Berkeley, Los Angeles, they all have tables.
Oh, I mean, I can put a table in if you want, but then it wouldn't be, I mean, that would be fine. It wouldn't be ADA compliant. It would be more confusing, but I can put that in if you want. Here in 3.1.2 is where the comment, I believe, was made, and of putting in a table. And so,
And do we want to be adding fax numbers and email addresses, personal service when it may change, and then you have to go back into the document and change the document again?
well, we would,
You have it.
you
So
can't,
that it's included there. And I don't think that a table is non-ADA compliant. That sounds kind of like a.
I think
Well, I don't know. Let me have my screen reader read it.
yeah, when you dictate, usually the phone, I forget what they're called, but that would be the concern of how it would translate to whoever's hearing it on the other side.
So does that mean that all documents that have a table are non-ADA compliant?
it's not that it's non-ADA compliant, it's just, it doesn't get the intent of the document out. So how this would, it would read by service of all papers except subpoenas may be done by column 1, row 1, personnel service, column, row 2, column A, and then the address. Row 2, column 1, facsimile, column 2, row 1, 54273-4567. Column 3 or column 1, row 3, email. Column 2, row 3, Snyder@santaana.org. I'm just saying that's how it would read. And so if it's that ADA compliance recommends that if you're putting something in a list, they recommend not putting items in tables for formatting reasons, but for information data reasons. I'm just asked for ADA compliance. I researched it, and this is what I have found in the research and looking it up.
I know we have to ask ourselves, do we want to open up the city to a lawsuit for something not being ADA compliant?
City is not required for only federal.
I don't think this would be like the time where we're like, we have to use a table. So maybe in like a different like engineering appendix, maybe then I would argue more on it, but I don't think it adds that much by changing this to the table. So that's fine.
Are we ready to vote on the entirety of the document and with changes contained inside of it?
I think we were still missing the updates with the process map and job descriptions.
The process?
Or not job description, but like basically this whole document, but in a process flow. It's like a visual. Or did we not want to include that?
I remember that request, and then we have discussed it. We were looking into what is the process of it. And I just didn't, putting it into a process flow, I didn't, basically what it is the personnel board decides what changes that they're gonna make. And, of course, the attorney, well, we have process in which, your attorney makes recommendations, and then for it to be, finalized, we do need to have final legal review, and then, of course, the staff takes a look at it, city clerk will take a look at it. But I don't know that it's not defined anywhere what those processes are.
Not the process sorry to clarify, not the process for updating this document, the process that we're discussing for requesting it, like having the Skelly hearing, then having the appeal, and then like service of process, like all of those steps, like the pre-hearing, then going and who is in charge of making decisions there, and then where does it go next and next. So like the actual,
Like a flow chart of everything leading up to coming to the personnel board.
yeah, and then even during the personnel board, the steps, like then it goes to the hearing, then it goes to, like, we discuss it, I believe, and then we gather a report, or I'm not even sure. Which is why I would want there to be a process flow in here, so that, like, say it's a new member coming on, they could look at it and see, oh, this is the next step.
Would that live in this document?
That's outside the purview of the personnel board. I thought it was just once it gets to the personnel board.
Those comments were already in the rule and procedure format. And that's
The
Yeah.
personnel,
Well, because
But
that's covered by the charter, by the municipal code. It's
So-
not covered by the personnel board.
so then can we only do the process flow for,
things that we review and decide on, and just understanding that flow would be helpful. Even, because I know that we have requested that flow, and then also when things are submitted, like ideally the discovery would be submitted by this time by the.
We could add an exhibit of a sample procedure. But it's always just gonna be an example because,
Yeah.
look at how, but I wouldn't,
being an example and not something that has to be followed. But I think it would be helpful for new personnel board commissioners to have like a visual on what's next, because the current rules procedure is not clear on, like, I don't even know what our next step is in the hearing that we're in.
So in this exhibit, what would be,
We had requested this back in January, I believe.
I, based on what was the notes that were given to me, I thought it was something completely different. I did not understand that it was the process of,
I can easily like draft, but again, it needs to clearly say it's an example, because I wouldn't want an appellant to, they shouldn't be relying on that. It's just visual to kind of see.
Can it live outside of this and just be in the training manual that we each get when a new board member comes on? It's in the training manual.
Yeah,
I could do that, like not including it in here, as long as we can get it somewhere.
Yeah.
okay, yeah, I can draft that for you guys and then you can put it in the training. That'd be helpful.
Okay.
Yeah.
okay. And then, so it would start with the adverse action or it would start with the adverse action, Skelly, go through all of that?
I mean,
I think whatever would paint the picture for a new board member, like say they don't have experience in HR, like public government, like
yeah.
where would you want the process flow to show them so that they know what's going on and where they're at in the trial or hearing and like what's next?
So I will only put the hearing process. I mean, I can do the entirety of the hearing process from, disciplinary action, pre-disciplinary action to deliberations and decision, but I won't cover, that's all I'll do. And just kind of put that in a flow chart of some sort.
Jenna, this is Denise. Yeah, and I agree. I think there needs to be a little more detail on what the expectations are from the board and the chair and what their duties will be, whether they're a chair, vice chair, or part of the board. I mean, it's pretty, it's really high level. It doesn't really give as much detail. I think when you're going on to the City of Santa Ana Commission boards, and when someone goes and fills out an application, we had those meetings, but it really didn't go into detail as what your role will be in these hearings.
Yeah, the training needs to be more impactful.
I think more detail.
Mhm.
So each board member, whether it be a chairperson or a vice chair, understands what they're really, I mean, I know we can't compare what's going on right now because these are delayed hearings because of COVID and the shutdown. But moving forward, as Michelle says, if nobody doesn't have kind of the background in commissions or boards or the public sector or HR, someone coming on thinking, okay, and then they're kind of just thrusted into this hearing. And, it's a lot of responsibility in them to understand and really take the time and energy to understand what they're doing when they're asking to be part of this commission, the personnel board.
Yeah, well, I'm happy to do that, and I'll run it, to staff, and if they have any input. Unfortunately, it is one of those things where until you go through it, I mean, that is a lot of your training. So, but I will do my best and try to put a bunch of details in there that will help you, and you guys can give me comments on it too, where where you think it's lacking or whatnot.
Yeah, that'd be great. I think it's maybe just a skeleton kind of, and then we can kind of put in the meat and potatoes where we feel that the next personnel board member, chair or vice chair, can kind of see more of what the expectation is and what their duty is. I mean, something as easy as simple as we've been talking about this whole almost 2 hours, attendance. How crucial is attendance?
I will do that. I'll put it on my to-do list.
So do we have a motion to approve the changes to the personnel board rules?
So moved.
I second. Denise.
Any discussion?
Yay.
Gabriela Hernandez Castillo? Nelly Legaspi?
Yes.
Denise Naranjo?
Yes.
Michelle Polito?
Yes.
Angie Rivera?
Yes.
Gary Wood?
Yes.
The motion carries.
Yay. Everybody pat yourself on the back.
So this concludes the business calendar. Do we have any comments from the board members?
I'll just say good work, guys. When we talked about this last fall, we thought it was going to take up until September, and look, we got it done by April.
Yeah, we were great job. I think great minds, coming together. So I think it's just saddened that Bernice, who also had a part of it, wasn't here, but I think we can pass on the good news.
Yes, definitely. And thank you to the staff, most definitely.
Too, for doing a lot of like the scheduling and like checking and researching.
Thank you, Senate staff and Jenna.
You're welcome.
Yay. It's exciting stuff, everybody. We did a lot of, Bob, I'm not gonna say we, y'all did a lot of work.
Now, if we're done with board member comments, staff member comments. I have a comment, in scheduling, so I think it's been a week ago. I just wanted to point out in the scheduling, last time we were at well, not last time we were at a hearing, a couple of hearings ago, we had asked the attorneys how many more nights they need, and they identified about 5 more nights, or about actually 4 to 5 more nights. And so even though we went out and we determined many nights of on our calendars based on our scheduling document, we set 5 nights for sure as hearing dates, and then I just kept a hold on the rest of them. And I sent those 5 nights to the attorneys, and they're, they came back and they said they're all good. So I sent those 5 nights to the attorneys. We had those scheduled. Now, one of the ones we had a hold on, Bernice was not able to attend, but she was actually able to attend another night that she was the only one who was not able that night. So we're able to switch that out. I reached out to the attorneys. They said, yeah, they're both available. So then what I went ahead and did is I locked in all those dates, because it seems to be taking a little bit longer. The hearing's taking a little bit longer than maybe those 5 nights. And then we started counting it up, or I started counting it up. So once we're done with this current witness, then we have the other side who will make their case, and then after that, the way the process goes is then the board, you guys will deliberate on the case and come to your final decision. And so it probably take more than 5 nights. I wanted to make sure our calendars reflected that. So I went ahead and I put a hold on everything for all the times that were available through June. So I just wanted to point out that's what we've done. And we have those on your calendars, and I emailed those out to you. I also emailed those out to the attorney. So those are the scheduled hearing dates. And hopefully we'll be done sooner, and then maybe we can get started on the next case.
Yay.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think I got everything, it's always like when you send out those emails, like they're consecutive emails, and I try to make sure I hit each one. And I just hope I hit each one, but maybe the next time we are together on the 27th, just kind of go over them just so we have them in our calendar. Because I mean, we're relying on electronics, and I'm not saying that we're not all computer savvy, but you just never know.
Right.
And
Better just double check.
Yeah,
I read them out right now too, and so we can put those in the minutes as well.
sure.
Yeah.
Everybody's ready.
So our
Just
next,
grab,
so
give me 1 second.
all dates from now on are all hearing dates so far.
Yeah.
Okay.
Our next date is Wednesday, April 27. Wednesday, April 27. The following week, Wednesday, May 4th. Wednesday, May 4th, and then we have Monday, May 23, and Tuesday, May 24. And then we have Wednesday, June 8. And then Tuesday, June 14, Wednesday, June 15, and Thursday, June 16. So those are the dates I have on calendar for the hearing.
Yay, I have them all.
Okay, great.
And the only one I'll be there, but I'm gonna be coming in all ragged, is May 4th, because I'm gonna be driving back from Arizona that day. But I'm leaving early, so I should be here in town by 3. So no, I won't miss you guys.
Any other comments? Then I will adjourn the meeting at exactly 8 o'clock.
Wow, we did good.
Yep, on the dot.
Yay. All right, everybody.